Okay, hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about intimacy by the numbers. So like so many things, I focus on intimacy and connection. And intimacy goes beyond sexual intimacy. We often say, let's be intimate, or we're being intimate, and and we're talking about sex. But intimacy is really about that full connection of really being yourself, being really open with another person. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I am Dr. Carol Clark, and the author of Addict America, The Lost Connection, and my pocket therapist, 12 Tools for Living in Connection. And for anyone who reads those books and thinks that they're a good resource for people, and you do have clients or friends you want to give it away to, I do offer a discount, a bulk discount. So you can email me if you're interested in that. And I can offer you 50% off the books, and then you can keep them in your office and you can sell them for whatever you want, or just give them away. That's what I do with my clients. I give them away. So just contact me if you'd like to do that. So I'm also the director and president of the International Institute of Clinical Sexology, which offers a PhD in clinical sexology for anyone who's interested in earning a PhD. And the Therapist Certification Association, which offers several certifications in sex therapy, behavioral and substance addiction, kink conscious therapy, hypnotherapy and sexuality, sex offender therapy, and transgender care. And so I'm also the president and director of the International Transgender Certification Association. So if you're interested in getting any of those certifications, please visit the website or call me. And I have a bug named after me, which I always like to throw in because that's really unique. There's my bug. So here's something that I explain to everyone. Couples come together out of an equal fear of intimacy. So think about that. In couples, and we can expand that to non-monogamous people. So anyone, not just couples, but anyone. We come together out of an equal fear of intimacy. However capable one person is of being intimate, of true intimacy and connection, that's how much the people that we draw into our circles will be capable of intimacy. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and it will hopefully become clearer. So this is the answer to many questions about how people end up with each other. A lot of people say, how did I end up with this person? Why can't I ever meet the right person? I want to be in an intimate relationship, so why do I keep choosing emotionally unavailable partners? I've had more than one girlfriend who says, why do I keep finding great guys who live somewhere else? And different guys who say, why do all the women I meet want me only for my money? And then everybody, why do all the partners I meet turn out to be addicts? And even if you don't know that person's an addict when you first get involved with them, they turn out to be addicts. And if you think about what I've talked previously about with all the concepts around Addict America, and how we all, addiction is an overall concept of that push-pull, using addictive behavior to control how close we get to another person, to control how much we let someone in. We use addictive behaviors as an escape from pain. And so a lot of us are, to some degree, living in addictive states. So when we have someone who's really, truly an addict, an alcoholic, a drug addict, a sex addict, a gambler, those are a lot of things that people will keep to themselves, or it's not really apparent, but gradually people realize, uh-oh, this person is an addict, and now I'm involved with them. And we're never going to blame anyone for an addict's behavior. Even though the addicts may try to blame their partners for their own behavior, use them as an excuse for their addictive behavior. But we're never going to take on that blame. That being said, how is it that we get involved with addicts? Okay, and so that's a bit of what we're looking at. That's a lot of what we're looking at today. How is it that someone gets involved with an addict, even though the addict's behavior is their responsibility? So how does it happen then? The person who says he or she or they, please, for simplicity, I use the he or she, and please expand that to whatever other pronouns you would like to use. So how does it happen that a person who says he or she wants to be in an intimate relationship has such difficulty? And so that happens because we have that inner child, so from our family of origin, who holds on to the messages of I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm a bad person, I'm worthless, and so on. So if you remember how addiction forms, so from our families of origin, we take in these messages that I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm a bad person, I'm worthless. From seemingly insignificant events, oftentimes, like getting a B on your report card instead of an A, and having a parent that is telling you, why can't you be better? You need to get an A. What's wrong with you? And that child, the parent thinks they're being motivating, and the child thinks, I'm a failure. I'm not good enough, I'm worthless. Love is conditional. So each person subliminally recognizes that the other will come so close and no closer. So let me just say, what we're talking about here is if I think that I'm a bad person or I'm worthless, I'm not important, I'm going to put up barriers to keep you away. And remember, we have our prefrontal cortex and our limbic system. The limbic system is where our emotions are. That's our survival brain. And that's where memory is. And so those memories get attached to emotions. And so as a little child, when I internalize the emotion of feeling bad and worthless, and I encode that in my memory, and now I start carrying that around. And then it becomes the filter through which I interpret events throughout my life. Okay. And the prefrontal cortex is the thinking, reasoning, logical brain, and spiritual brain. That's why I call it the enlightened brain. So that's the spiritual brain. So we have the caveman brain, which is acting on a very primitive level and develops this fear of intimacy. The fear of intimacy, because if I get too close, you're going to see how worthless I am, how not good enough I am. And then you're going to reject me, you're going to abandon me, or I'm going to have to work really hard. You're going to hurt me. And so I'm going to try to protect myself from that. And so I'm putting up this barrier. And now to some degree or another, and this is where we're going to get into the numbers part. And so we have the prefrontal cortex that's saying, I want to be close to you. But the limbic system is saying, no, 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 stay away. And so this is where each person coming into a relationship subliminally, unconsciously recognizes that the other person will come so close and no closer. We're picking this up on a very unconscious level, but we pick up on it. We sense from a degree of where are we comfortable? How close are we comfortable getting to another person? And then we get that close and no closer. And so we're going to match the other person's comfort level. So they will unconsciously strive to keep that distance, and we will as well. And so how do we do that? How do we balance that push-pull? Well, for instance, when couples come together sexually, and in the beginning of a relationship, they're all like, oh, wow, I'm so in love with you, and this is wonderful, and you're so hot, and turn me on, and we're having this great sex, and we must have been, fated to be together by the stars, and we're so perfect together, because that's all the brain chemicals from having great sex. But then as they stay together and become more emotionally connected, now they're pushing past that degree of comfort. So they've been getting together closer sexually, but now as the emotion grows and they come closer together, something has to give. And so what gives? The sex. So now people are falling in love and their sex life starts to suffer. And that's often when people will come see me. I'm a sex therapist. And people will come into my office saying, we want to get back to where we were before we fell in love. Before our love grew. There's that feeling of being in love and the feeling of love growing. And so there's that push-pull. As we get closer emotionally, we have to control how close we are, and we do it through sex. And sex then becomes a symptom of our inability to be fully connected and intimate. So as they become emotionally close, they will pull apart sexually, and then they will employ any number of mechanisms to maintain the status quo. And so people will come up with all kinds of different ways to stay apart. They'll start fighting, they'll lead different lives, they'll do all kinds of things to, stay apart. They'll do power and control things. So one person's in a position of power over the other, or they're just bouncing around. So this is what I was saying before. When we're children, we personalize everything, which is where the messages come from. And so it could be something obvious like being abused that leads to the belief of being a bad person or being worthless, or something more subtle, like bringing home a B instead of an A on a report card, which leads to the belief of not being good enough. And we grow up with that sense of having to maintain a certain distance from others. So if they get too close, they will see our inner selves and run away. So we have anger at mother or father, impact on intimacy. The thing with anger at mother or father for children is that it's not safe for kids to be angry at their parents. And because kids personalize everything, little kids think that they control the world. And so again, there's that dichotomy of, I think I control the world. Everything that happens is because of me. And therefore, anything bad that happens is my fault. If my parents get divorced, it's my fault. If my parents are beating me, it's my fault. If, if it's raining, it's my fault. But they also know that it's too much, that they really can't handle being in control of everything. And this is where kids are always pushing the boundaries, hoping that there will be boundaries. And this is a parent's job, is to provide those boundaries, because those boundaries keep children safe. Children need to know two things. They need to know that they're loved, and they need to know they're safe. And so safety is often providing those boundaries. When a child feels like, I can do anything, I'm in control of everything. If you have permissive parents, they're like, yeah, go ahead. Sure, you can do anything. Those kids are going to push and push and push. They're going to keep doing everything. And often they stop when something catastrophic happens. And this is where a lot of people end up in prison, because prison's a safe place. Prison has boundaries. It has rules. You push up against the rules, you're going to be stopped. And so that actually provides a sense of safety for a lot of people. Okay. I used to work in a mental hospital run by a psychiatrist who believed in reparenting and less medication, which, for better or for worse, that's what he was doing. This was back in he started the place in the 60s and ran it through the 70s. And then I started working there in the 80s with my husband. And we noticed that the patients, the schizophrenics, would be like little children in this way. They'd keep pushing and pushing and pushing, waiting for somebody to set the boundaries. And so we did that. We put them in a straitjacket. We never left them alone. No isolation. People need to be in connection. So we put them in a straitjacket. But often when they were feeling unsafe, or, a little crank, like, all they need to do is raise a fist, And we'd go ahead and put them in a straitjacket, and then they calm down, they feel safe, they feel nurtured. And we did nurture them when they were in straitjackets. So it's interesting, some of the things from that experience were crazy, and some actually had a good foundation. But I digress. So this anger at mother or father, I think what you're saying, so this is for anybody who's listening to this later and not live, this is one of the comments that somebody put on the chat. Adults will have anger at mother or father, although when they start to process, they often get protective towards their parents. So it's not safe to be angry at a mother or father, unless sometimes we see this when the parents are separated and then they align with the person in power. They'll align with the person in power, not necessarily the nurturing person, not the safe person, not a loving person. They'll align with the person in power because that's where they feel safe, you see. And then they will align with that person against the other one. And they will actually project their anger at the situation, at everything that's going on, and they'll project that anger onto one of the parents. And usually not both. So, and you do say mother or father. And it's not until they're adults that often, and you know, when I'm doing EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing with people, do they finally, as they start to heal and heal those old memories, reprocess those old memories, do they come to a place where then they can allow themselves to feel the anger at their parents? So they do that once they come into an adult place in their processing. But kids generally don't. I mean, kids have temper tantrums and I hate you, but that's different than the than I think what you're talking about with the impact on intimacy. Okay, so the but yes, all the impact of anything that impacts in intimacy pretty much always happens as children, you know, when someone is a child. There's not too much, you know, it would have to be pretty catastrophic to impact us as adults. And this is why when you are working, for those of you who are therapists, most of you are, when you are working with adults who come into your office, there'll be a precipitating event. Like, you know, 40-year-old woman who's successful in career and feels good about her life in general, but she's saying, I can't find the right guy. I just need a guy. I want to meet somebody. And, you know, 40 is kind of a significant event in people's lives, especially if they feel like something's missing. And so that's where we're going to see, we could focus on, okay, let's look at what's going on in your life right now. How can you change that? How can you meet people? You know, and that's addressing the presenting problem, which is not really the underlying problem. That's like giving an aspirin for a headache. And oh, the aspirin didn't work. Well, let's try ibuprofen. That didn't work. Let's try a massage, neck massage. That doesn't work. Okay, it's not getting to what's the underlying problem. And the underlying problem, we need to go back to childhood. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't. It's scary. It's very scary. And then sometimes while we're trying to build trust, they just get impatient and go find new therapists. And said, no, I want you to give me a quick answer. And there's more of our addictive behavior. That's that addiction coming out. So I want what I want when I want it. And not everybody wants to do the work. Okay. So does that make sense? Anybody have any questions right now that they want to chat in? You notice I'm moving nice and slowly today. All right. So yeah, text anytime. So there's that phenomenon of come close and stay away. So it's all unconscious. It's all unconscious. The limbic system, the caveman brain, please forgive, that's just a word, it's not indicative of gender, where our emotions reside is motivating our behavior without even realizing it. Okay, and it's fascinating when you start looking at what motivates seemingly crazy, irrational, foolish behavior. It's back there in the limbic system. And so it's something, it's not foolish or necessarily even crazy. It makes sense to the limbic system, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to our prefrontal cortex. So that's the enlightened brain where our thinking takes place. And that's the part of the brain that says, I want to be close, intimate, and connected. But the caveman brain is pulling back in fear. And recognize that we are all connected. So, believe it or not, where I'm coming from is we are all connected. So you can look at that from a spiritual, religious place of we are all connected with a higher power, with God, with whatever you want, force. And also from a quantum physics place where we're all part of the Higgs field. The Higgs field is it's just where we're all connected. We're all part of the Higgs field and the energy. And our energy is all connected. So we are connected. What happens is these events in childhood, and even before, we're starting to see more research that shows not only are we affected by our time in utero, so things that happen to our mothers and how our mothers are taking in stimuli from the world and what mothers, for instance, put into their bodies. So, for instance, the food a mother eats while she's pregnant, it impacts the foods the child is going to crave. But even going back before, there's some interesting studies coming out with rats and mice that show that they still respond to trauma that happened to, like, I've heard anywhere from 7 to 14 generations back. So the trauma happened, say, 7 generations back. And now today's mouse responds to that trauma, to that stimuli, when they didn't experience the actual trauma. Does that make sense? So, I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing, how we can have generational trauma. Okay, so putting that aside, we're otherwise born optimally into the world, able to connect. So it's what happens to us that gives us this fear of intimacy. And there, so on the one hand, we want to connect, we want to acknowledge our universal connection, and we want to feel it and experience it. And yet, because of life events, either this life or past life, we're going to be afraid of it because it hurt us. Okay. Which is then goes into the addiction that I talk about all the time, that we use the addictive drugs or behaviors to escape that pain of being disconnected. So we have a chat here. How media promote intimacy, give false perception of genuine intimacy. The Bachelors. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, and certainly all our advertising, these shows, all of that, they really tap into our need to be connected, our need to find someone. And yet there's genuine intimacy, and then there's pseudo-intimacy. And I've talked about that, the pseudo-intimacy of getting close, but no closer. It's that controlling the intimacy. So when you think about a show like The Bachelor, where in that case, it's the Bachelor is choosing amongst the women. Oh, God. Ladies, this goes against every feminist fiber in my body. But I know they do it the other way around too. I'm not a fan of that either. So, and yet it's good TV, and it really draws you in, doesn't it? But that there's a control there. I get to choose. If I was like on one of these shows and I'm the one getting to choose, I'm controlling the intimacy. I can choose how long I'm going to talk to you. I can control how close we get. I can control a lot of things in this. And then ultimately, though, if I choose you, well, what's that based on? And have I objectified my choice? So that was what was happening with the, it was so funny. In a short period of time, I had like 2 or 3 40-year-old women, successful career women, but they were in this place of objectifying. You know, they wanted to have checklists. So please, all of you who are therapists, it's easy to fall into that. Oh, let's look at what you're looking for in a partner. And then you come up with that checklist. Well, I want someone who's a career person, who makes a certain salary, who's, you know, over 5'11", who's fit and works out. And you have this whole checklist. And on the surface, you can say, well, that makes sense. You know, I'm not looking for, you know, somebody that isn't taking care of their health, or I'm not looking for, you know, this, or this. But what you're doing is you're creating an object. You're looking for an object. And when you're objectifying someone, then you're reaching for that object to feel better about yourself. And what is that? Drug-seeking behavior. And now we're back to addiction. Give me this person with these characteristics to make me feel better, to make me feel worthwhile, good enough, like I'm a good person. You see? So if I'm feeling like I'm bad, worthless, not good enough, and I'm looking for you to fix that, but who am I going to attract? So get out of that idea of making checklists and looking, where can I meet this person and what should I do to meet the right person? We don't need to worry about it. See, this is where I've come to after almost 30 years of being a therapist, and before that, just being a person and living my life, is we don't need to set up anything in order to get together with the right person. We need to let go all of that, let go of control. That's step 1 and 2 steps. Give up trying to control and just let it happen. Look at what can we control. We can control ourselves. I can be the best person I can be. I can choose how I want to be. What kind of person do I want to be, and live in harmony with that? Okay? So it takes time to connect, to be truly intimate. Maybe, maybe not. So this, I'm responding to the chat again. What I'm presenting is that when you are good with yourself, then the people who are good with themselves to an equal degree are who's going to come into your life. Okay? So let's go to our next slide and see what that says. Let's give the sphere of intimacy a number. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the farthest away you can possibly be, and 10 being completely connected, let's say you're a 5. Exactly, you attract what you are, somebody is saying. So maybe your parents got divorced and you hardly saw your father after that. You waited in vain for him to show up, but he never did. You took in the message that you are not important. You say you want to be in an intimate relationship with a man, but you don't trust that a man will really be there for you. So you're a 5. If you meet a man who's a 7, you're a 5, you're like here, and you meet a man who's a 7, so he's able to be closer, he'll be trying to get closer than you feel comfortable with, and you're going to be pushing him away. So you'll actually be pulling away. Now, if you meet a 3, somebody out here, you're going to be trying to get closer to him, and he's going to be pulling away until one of you gives up. And generally, when the numbers are mismatched, they won't even get together. The vibe just isn't there. Okay, we're just kind of scanning around, and you kind of get with somebody, but they're pulling away, or vibe just isn't there. So what happens when we meet another 5? Now, remember, our higher selves, our prefrontal cortex, our enlightened brain, strives for connection. It will work for a while. You get together, you feel comfortable. You feel comfortable. This is where it comes from when we say people marry their mothers or their fathers, or they repeat what was happening in childhood, because they learned a certain degree of comfort with dysfunction. Okay, so even though they want to be more functional, but the dysfunction, the having a father who's an addict and living in that kind of house becomes comfortable. That feels familiar. Our caveman brain, amongst all the other things, likes familiarity. It doesn't want to change. The caveman brain's about 5 million years old. Doesn't want to change. And so it resists change a lot. This is why it's hard to keep weight off if you do a crash diet, because the limbic system says, oh no, crash diet must be, there's a famine, or this isn't right. We have to maintain the status quo, and it'll shut down your metabolism. You have to do it very gradually. Just take off a couple of pounds at a time, a little bit at a time, to help the caveman brain say, okay, it's okay, it's okay, we can do this. It feels, I can be okay with this. And then you'll keep it off because you'll establish a new normal. And it can take a long time. And there'll be like plateaus of new normal. And eventually, the new normal will feel right. And now your caveman brain will say, this is normal, we don't want to change. Okay. So, you get together, two fives get together, you're comfortable being here. The problem is we're spiritual beings, we're innately connected to each other. Okay? And the universe, our enlightened brains want us to be as close as we can get. So we're always striving for real connection. We want to be known and accepted fully as we are. And yet we're scared of death. We're scared to death of that. So we engage in this dance of power and control as we try to maintain the status quo, even while growing and evolving. Y'all with me? Anybody? Questions? Okay. So, here we are. We need to recognize our fears, take responsibility for them, and make that decision to not bring the past into the present. The therapy definitely helps with this. That's why we're all therapists. But that's where we're going. We can take the scary risk of being open to intimacy. We can believe that we're lovable. We can choose to be tense. I think this is the last slide. So, which is my book. Now, yep. See, I slowed it down and we still went through it pretty quick. So here's this. Let's think about some examples of this. This pseudo-intimacy. People sitting around in bars and saying, this is my home away from home. So I used to be a bartender a long time ago. I was a bartender. And, you know, I'm saying, I'm giving you drinks because you're going to give me tips. This is my job. But when I have a guy sitting there saying, oh, this is my home away from home. And sometimes I worked in some bars where there were dancers. And they're tipping me, they're tipping the dancers. They're feeling like they have relationships with us. And no, they don't. You know, this is not your home. All right. The show Cheers, you know, where everybody is there like, oh, this is their home, sitting in a bar. So what we have a bunch of alcoholics who are sitting around in these pseudo relationships. You know, Norm walks in, Norm, right? He comes in, we know he has a wife. So where's his wife? He's in the bar every freaking night, right? So he's distancing, he's controlling how intimate he is with his wife, but he's in this artificial, this pseudo-intimate relationship with the people in the bar, who all have their own pseudo-intimate lives. But I can tell you, when I was tending bar, I'll smile at you, and I'll give you another drink, and I'll cut you off if I have to. But I'm not your family, okay? I'm not. I'm going home. to my husband, who I love and who I feel very intimate with. I'm going home to my family for Christmas and for holidays and having a nice connected life, which has been hard won because I didn't grow into I wasn't born into that, trust me. But I came to a place where I had a good life. I happened to be working in a bar because I could make money at it, but it was eventually, I was kind of like that push-pull of the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, because I'm a counselor. At heart, I am a counselor. I want to help people. So enabling, feeding into people's alcoholism and into lives where they're just not happy, that wasn't really where I wanted to be. So I eventually, I made it through school and became a therapist. So somebody is chatting in. How does one know what their intimacy number is on the 1 to 10 scale? Might be someone believe they're open to intimacy, but they're actually not. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they're really a 3, but not self-aware. It's the purpose of me talking about intimacy by the numbers is to get the concept of like meets like, So if you're really a 3, you think you're a 7, sure, that's the whole thing. Your prefrontal cortex thinks you're a 7, but your limbic system says, no, we're a 3. So we're back here. And that's where you're thinking, oh, why don't I meet somebody? Well, it's because you're really a 3. So just recognizing that when I'm not getting what I want, which is an intimate relationship, there's always a problem. To be able to recognize, okay, the problem is with me. And not that there's something wrong with me. It's that something was done to me as a child, that I took in these messages as a child, and that wasn't right. And that's really sad. And it is what it is. And now I can do something about it. And what I can do is start being my best self. One of my favorite homework assignments for clients is a vision board. So we do a nice big vision board. And in fact, I have one in my, here's my book. This one's not in color. I don't know if you can see this. So here, if you get the Kindle version of the book, you can see it in color. But here we have sex therapist, and this was actually done by one of my students sorry about the phone. This is done by one of my students who became a sex therapist, and she got her doctoral degree in sex therapy. So she made it happen. She wanted to have a child. She made that happen. So you put these things, enjoy today. She sets an intention every day of enjoy today. She has our lovely little family. So you put all the things, here's the book. Does it look like me? If I put the glasses on? Okay, so you put on your vision board the kind of person you want to be. And that takes some thinking. Who do I want to be? I want to be capable of intimacy. Okay, what does that mean? It means first letting go of those thoughts that I'm not good enough. And again, EMDR is my go-to for that. We're going to reprocess those old memories from childhood. What happened to me in childhood, we can reprocess, and I can grow up, and now I'm healed. I can put those in the past, and now I'm going to be healed, so I can interact in the present. I can connect in a way that I don't fear you hurting me. So there's a paradox going on here. If I'm coming close and no closer and say, oh, well, I don't want to get hurt, or and I'm doing something to control and to protect myself. Protect myself from what? How can you hurt me if I'm good with myself? So for instance, if I like my nose, I like my nose. My nose is fine. I like my nose. I'm fine with my nose. You can tell me I have an ugly nose. You can tell me I have a big nose, a little nose. There's something wrong with my nose. It doesn't matter. I'm going to look like whatever. Okay? You're not going to hurt me. You're not. If I grew up thinking there was something wrong with my nose, if maybe one of my parents teased me about my nose, if when I was a little kid, I went to school and people were teasing me about my nose, and then I get in a relationship and that person says something about my nose, oh my God. See, now you can hurt me. But at the end of the day, it's my nose. It's up to me to be good with my nose. I can either be good with my nose, I can fix my nose, I can have surgery, hopefully realistic, so I don't keep trying to fix it. And you're not going to hurt me. And just in the same thing, we can do that with deeper self-beliefs. If I feel like I'm not good enough, and I'm always trying to get people out here to prove that I'm good enough, if I need to make more money to feel I'm good enough, if I need people to love me to feel good enough, it's never going to happen. And so, you know, we have this question on the chat saying, when is it best to explore your past intimate relationship in a safe way with a new partner? Before you have a new partner is the answer to that. Not when you have a new partner. Before you have a new partner, I would like you to explore your child self. Get the therapy. Do EMDR. I've done EMDR. Oh my God, it's amazing. Okay. It's things that come out and heal that you are so used to, you never even knew they were there. Things that we think of with an adult brain and dismiss or minimize or explain away with our prefrontal cortex. But that little kid is back there crying over those things. So we have to get back into the limbic system. So whether it's EMDR or some other non-talk therapy, talk therapies are here. We got to get back into that limbic system with the non-talk therapy to reprocess and resolve those old memories. So I don't need a new partner. It's not about getting with a new partner and then revealing ourselves. And that's part of being with a new partner, is sharing our lives and telling them, oh, this is my life and this is your life, but doing it from a place of, I'm good with my life. And I've already attracted this new partner I'm attracting is good with themselves. And I don't have to fear anything because we're both 10s on the intimacy emotional scale. And we don't even have to, it just happens. So as soon as you say, and thank you for asking this, explore your past intimate relationship in a safe way with a new partner. You feel safe before going into it, okay? If you're with a new partner and saying, oh, when do I feel safe with this person? Forget it. You already are not a 10. You already have something you need to heal. And I would say, ask yourself, what is it that feels not safe to share? You know, is it abuse? Is it something you did that you have some shame around? Is it something about your background? Is it, you know, the big hairy mole on your ass? Okay, whatever it is, be good with it. Be good with yourself. Be able to say, this happened to me. I did this. You know what? When I was younger and still struggling and finding my way, I did some things that I'm certainly not proud of, that for a long time I had shame around, and now I've resolved that. And I'm not saying it was good I did it. It's just, it's part of who I am, and it made me the person I am today, and I'm good with that. You see? I'm good with that. All right. So are you getting the sense of, these questions you're asking, the things you're bringing up are really typical, like how do I meet the right person? When is a good time to share? All of those things evaporate. They're not significant when you are good with yourself. You know, so again, more questions that people ask, you know, like all the shoulds. So when you look at my books, you listen to past lectures, I say should is my number one bad word, because there's no shoulds. It's want or would like. You own it. So there's no shoulds about when do you explore, when do you do this, it will just happen. It will just happen because you're good with yourself, and that's the energy you're going to attract. Questions, comments? Does that make sense to everybody? I'm going to stop the recording now, so everybody who's in the future, who's watching this recording, thank you. And please check out the books and check out other videos on YouTube. Don't hesitate to contact me if you would ever like to make some comments or have a discussion or talk about EMDR or take any of my programs. And thank you for joining.